Are you ready to step back in time over 1,000 years ago to a world forged by iron and ice? Imagine waking not to an alarm, but to the scent of wood smoke and the chill of a longhouse dawn. Would you survive a day as a Viking farmer, battling the harsh land? Or perhaps as a fierce warrior, shield brother to legends? Maybe even a daring raider, sailing into the unknown? Join us as we plunge into the gritty, thrilling reality of Viking life. This is not just history, it's history whispered into dreams. Before we begin, please consider subscribing and leave a like and a gentle comment. It helps these peaceful tales reach others who need rest. Now let's begin. As the first tendrils of light stretched across the ancient Nordic landscape, a profound stillness often settled over the world, broken only by the subtle stirrings of life. Within the timber-framed longhouses, a faint, ethereal glow would begin to emanate from the central hearth, where embers from the previous night still held a lingering warmth. The crisp, cold air of the Scandinavian dawn, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth, would gently seep through the smoke hole and the carefully constructed walls, a constant reminder of the natural world that dictated every aspect of existence. This was a world deeply intertwined with its environment, where the very air breathed, the wood used for building, and the waters navigated were direct products of the surrounding natural features. The landscape, with its extensive coastlines, dense forests, and varied terrain, fundamentally shaped the daily rhythms and survival strategies of the people. In this immersive journey, the daily realities of Viking Age life will unfold through the perspectives of three distinct, yet deeply interconnected individuals. The steadfast farmer, whose toil rooted the community to the land. The disciplined warrior, ever vigilant for defense or the pursuit of glory. And the adventurous raider, drawn by the allure of distant horizons and the promise of new opportunities. It is important to understand that these roles were not always rigid or mutually exclusive. A single individual might embody different aspects of these lives depending on the season, the needs of their family, or the call of their chieftain. The popular image of a Viking as a full-time, relentless fighter is often a simplification. For many, the acts of raiding and pillaging constituted only a fraction of their time, with the majority of Norse people, including those who participated in expeditions, primarily engaged in farming or other essential trades. This fundamental agrarian base supported all other ventures, providing the sustenance and stability necessary for a society that also ventured far across the seas. This narrative invites a calm, detailed exploration of a single day, focusing on the authentic experiences, the quiet challenges, and the profound connections that defined Viking existence. It is a journey into the ancient rhythms and enduring realities of a people often misunderstood, revealing the intricate tapestry of their daily lives. The first signs of the new day often began not with a rooster's crow, but with the soft, rhythmic breathing of a grand family stirring within the longhouse. This multifunctional dwelling, typically measuring between 20 and 50 meters in length and 5 to 7 meters in width, served as the heart of the farm, housing not only extended families but also their precious livestock, particularly during the harsh winter months. The air, thick with the earthy scent of straw, animal warmth, and lingering wood smoke, was a constant sensory reminder of the intimate coexistence that defined their lives. The lowing of cattle, the gentle bleating of sheep from their stalls at one end of the communal living space, and the rustle of straw bedding as 10 to 20 individuals began to wake, created a symphony of domesticity. Privacy, as understood in modern times, was a luxury unknown in these close quarters. The sounds of early risers, the soft murmurs of conversation, and the shifting movements of bodies were all part of the shared experience. At the very core of this communal existence was the central hearth, a vital source of warmth and light. As the first members of the household rose, embers from the banked fire would be carefully coaxed back to life, their orange glow gradually illuminating the dimly lit interior. Smoke, rather than being channeled through a chimney, would rise and escape through a strategically placed hole in the roof, or vindauga, literally wind-eye, which also served as the primary source of natural light. This constant presence of wood smoke, while potentially irritating to modern eyes, was an integral part of the longhouse atmosphere, a familiar scent that permeated clothing, hair, and every corner of the dwelling. The hearth was not merely for cooking and heating, it was the social nexus, the focal point around which all activities revolved, from shared meals and storytelling to crafting and daily chores. This intimate cohabitation with livestock, a practice common in Viking longhouses, underscores a profound interdependence. The very survival of the human inhabitants was inextricably linked to the well-being and productivity of their animals, creating a constant practical bond that shaped daily routines and fostered a deep sense of communal resilience. As the longhouse slowly awakened, the first order of the day revolved around sustenance. Breakfast was a simple yet hearty affair designed to provide the energy needed for a day of demanding labour. It typically consisted of basic flatbread, made from the grains cultivated on their own farms, such as barley, rye or oats. Alongside this, there might be cheese, butter or curds, products of their dairy animals. Water was the most common drink, though a low-alcohol ale might also be consumed, providing a safe and refreshing alternative to potentially contaminated water sources. Immediately following this simple meal, the essential morning ritual of tending to the livestock would begin. Cattle, horses, sheep, goats, and pigs were not just sources of food. They were the farm's most valuable assets, providing meat, dairy products, wool, skins, and even labour for transport. In the warmer months, animals would graze in open fields, but during the severely cold Nordic winters, they were brought indoors, sheltered within the longhouse itself or in adjacent outbuildings, and fed with carefully stored hay. This seasonal rhythm dictated much of the farmer's year, and the meticulous care of livestock was paramount, as a poor harvest or a sick animal could spell disaster for the entire household. Children from a young age were fully integrated into these daily rhythms. They were not viewed as fragile beings to be shielded, but rather as small adults, expected to contribute meaningfully to the farm's productivity. Through observation and active participation, they learned essential skills, milking cows, preparing food, and assisting with various chores around the farm. Even their play often served as a form of practical apprenticeship. For instance, a child's playhouse was likely an exercise in building a turf dwelling, a vital skill for boys to acquire. This approach to childhood highlights that early life was primarily a period of intense practical training, where the acquisition of survival skills was paramount. Every activity, even seemingly recreational ones, was geared towards ensuring the continuity of the farm and the family's self-sufficiency in a challenging environment. The Viking farmer's life was inextricably linked to the land, a testament to their deep understanding of agriculture and resource management. They practiced mixed farming, a highly efficient system that combined the cultivation of crops with the rearing of animals on the same farm. Staple cereal crops included barley, oats, and rye, which formed the backbone of their diet. These crops were often grown using open field systems, where the land was divided into long strips, each cultivated by a different family, a method that also facilitated communal grazing. To maintain soil health and prevent depletion, Vikings implemented sophisticated crop rotation techniques, alternating between barley, rye, and legumes like peas and beans. Leguminous plants were particularly valuable for their ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen, thereby naturally enriching the soil. In more forested areas, slash and burn agriculture was employed, clearing land by burning trees and underbrush to create fields. The ash produced by this method would temporarily enrich the soil, making it fertile for a few years before new plots needed to be cleared. Furthermore, they efficiently utilized natural resources, using manure from their livestock to fertilize fields and harnessing rivers and streams for irrigation during dry periods. The tools of the Viking farmer were simple yet remarkably effective, a reflection of their ingenuity and the advancements in ironsmithing during the era. The ard, a light plough without wheels, pulled by oxen or horses, was widely used to prepare the soil for planting. Other essential implements included scythes for cutting grass or cereals, sickles for harvesting, and hoes for weeding and cultivating. These tools were often crafted by the farmer himself, who needed to possess a diverse skill set as a good carpenter, blacksmith, cultivator of crops and breeder of animals. This necessity for broad practical skills underscores the farmer's role as the fundamental economic pillar of Viking society. Their diligent labour in the fields and with livestock provided the essential food and resources that sustained the entire community, including those who pursued the dangerous paths of warfare and raiding. Without the farmer's steadfast commitment to the land, no one would survive the long, unforgiving winters. Within the Viking longhouse, the farmer's wife held a position of considerable authority and respect, far beyond what might be assumed in a patriarchal society. While men were typically responsible for farming, hunting, fishing, and public affairs, women managed the domestic sphere, overseeing food preparation, child-rearing, and the crucial work of textile production. Her influence extended significantly, as she often commanded the work on the farm when her husband was away. A powerful symbol of her authority was the belt she wore, from which hung a set of keys to the farm's food stores. In the harsh climate of Scandinavia, where survival hinged on careful provisioning, food was truly the most precious commodity, and her control over it granted her substantial economic leverage within the household and community. This economic independence was further underscored by the legal framework of Viking society, which permitted divorce under certain circumstances, allowing women to retain control over their dowries and personal property. Such provisions granted them a relatively high degree of autonomy compared to women in many other contemporary societies. Women played a central and indispensable role in textile production. From spinning raw wool into thread to weaving intricate patterns on looms and sewing garments, their skills were vital for clothing the family and producing household textiles. Wool, being durable and warm, was the most common fabric, but linen, made from cultivated flax plants, was also widely used for softer undergarments and lighter wear. The ability to dye these natural fibers using plant-based and mineral-based dyes added a vibrant, though often muted, spectrum of colours to their clothing, with brighter hues typically reserved for the wealthier families. Children, as previously noted, were integral to the household's functioning from a young age. While formal schooling was non-existent, they learned practical skills through observation and direct participation. Girls, in particular, would assist their mothers and other grown women in tasks such as making linen garments, milking cows, and preparing food. Boys would be taught by their fathers and other male relatives, learning masculine skills like hunting, boat construction, and handling tools. Despite their responsibilities, children also found time for play, enjoying toys, dolls, games, and sports, often integrating these activities with their practical learning. The valuing of children as future contributors to family labour and lineage was paramount, reflecting a society where every member had a vital role in the collective struggle for survival. The isolated nature of many Viking farms meant that self-sufficiency was not merely a virtue, but a necessity. The farmer, therefore, had to be a master of many trades. Beyond cultivating crops and managing livestock, he was expected to be a good carpenter, capable of building and maintaining his own longhouse, as well as constructing boats or carts as needed. Furthermore, the farmer often functioned as the local blacksmith, crafting and repairing the essential tools for farming and daily life. The rhythmic clang of the hammer on the anvil, the scent of hot metal, and the earthy aroma of wood shavings would have been common sensory experiences around a Viking farmstead, signifying the constant industry required for survival. While individual farms were largely self-sufficient, Viking society was far from atomized. Communal gatherings played a crucial role in strengthening social bonds. Feasts, religious ceremonies, and legal assemblies known as Things Eing brought families and clans together, fostering a sense of unity and shared identity. These gatherings were not just social events, they were vital for the exchange of goods and resources. Trading activities, both within settlements and with external partners, facilitated the acquisition of necessities and luxuries that could not be produced locally. The sounds of bartering, the rustle of textiles, and the clinking of metal goods would have filled the air at such markets, adding to the vibrant sensory tapestry of Viking life. The profound connection to their physical world was evident in how Vikings viewed even mundane objects. These items were not merely utilitarian, they were imbued with cultural power and meaning. A finely crafted tool A beautifully woven tapestry or an intricately carved piece of wood could convey status, identity, and belief. This deep, embodied connection to their creations meant that the sensory experience of interacting with their material culture, the feel of a wooden handle, the sight of a dyed fabric, the sound of a working loom, was integral to their daily reality. It was a culture where performance and storytelling were often aided by material objects, and where the landscape itself served as a living document, triggering memories and providing essential resources. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the fields, the focus of the farm shifted indoors, towards the warmth and security of the longhouse. The evening meal was a central event, a time for the extended family to gather around the central hearth, sharing food and stories. A common dish would be skars, a hearty stew of boiled meat and vegetables with fresh trimmings often added to make it more concentrated and flavourful. The cauldron, suspended over the fire pit by an iron chain, would bubble and steam, filling the longhouse with the comforting aromas of cooking food. This emphasis on boiling as a primary cooking method was a practical choice, maximising the nutritional value from available resources and allowing for communal preparation. The Viking diet, a testament to their adaptability and ingenuity, combined agricultural staples with extensive hunting, fishing and foraging. They consumed meat from their livestock, fish from coastal waters and rivers, and foraged fruits, berries and nuts. Crucially, they employed sophisticated preservation methods, such as drying fish and curing meats, to ensure a steady food supply through the long, harsh winters. This strategic approach to food security was vital for survival in a climate where a poor harvest could mean starvation for both humans and animals. As darkness fully embraced the outside world, the longhouse transitioned into a space for quiet reflection and communal bonding. With the firelight dancing on the walls, illuminating tapestries depicting scenes from Norse mythology, families would settle onto benches that lined the walls, which also served as sleeping areas. Storytelling was a cherished pastime, a way to pass down traditions, history, and cultural values. Though the sagas, which recount tales of heroes and ancestral heritage, were largely written down after the Viking Age and are considered historical fiction, they reflect a vibrant oral tradition that would have filled the longhouse evenings. The sounds of laughter, the clinking of drinking horns, and the murmurs of conversation would blend with the crackle of the fire, creating a unique soundscape. Before sleep, the fire would be carefully banked, leaving the longhouse in a warm, smoky darkness, preparing for the rhythms of another day. For the Viking warrior, the dawn brought a different kind of awakening, one often driven by a sense of purpose and a readiness that transcended the agrarian rhythms of the farmer. While many warriors were also farmers or craftsmen, their mornings often began with a disciplined focus on maintaining the physical prowess and martial readiness that defined their identity. This wasn't necessarily formal military training in the modern sense, but rather a constant engagement with activities that built strength, endurance, and agility, essential for a life that could at any moment demand combat. A crucial part of this morning ritual involved the meticulous care of their weaponry. Swords, axes, spears, bows, and the versatile seekses were not merely tools for conflict. They were profound extensions of a warrior's persona, deeply intertwined with their social status, honor, and cultural identity. The soft, rhythmic rasp of a whetstone against steel as a blade was sharpened. The careful inspection of a bowstring or the polishing of a shield boss would be common sounds, signifying a warrior's dedication to their craft. The type and quality of these weapons also spoke volumes about the warrior. A pattern-welded steel sword, a pinnacle of Viking metallurgy, was a prized possession and a significant status symbol, often adorned with intricate designs. In contrast, axes were more common, serving both as powerful weapons and versatile tools in daily life, embodying the rugged adaptability of the Viking warrior. The warrior's attire was equally functional and symbolic. Clothing was typically layered, starting with a linen undertunic closest to the skin, designed to wick away moisture and provide comfort. Over this, a woolen overtunic, trousers, and a heavy woolen cloak offered insulation and flexibility, crucial for protection against the harsh Nordic climate. Wool, known for its durability and warmth, even when damp was the most common fabric. For wealthier warriors, these garments might be crafted from finer materials, dyed with brighter, more vibrant colours, or adorned with intricate embroidery, subtly communicating their elevated status within society. This blend of extreme practicality for survival in a demanding environment and the clear display of social standing through material possessions was a defining characteristic of Viking life. It is a common misconception that all Vikings were full-time warriors. In reality, the term Viking often referred to a profession or an activity rather than a permanent identity, and for the majority of Norse people, it was often a temporary pursuit. Most Vikings were primarily farmers, cultivating grains and raising livestock, or they engaged in other essential trades such as boat building, woodworking, blacksmithing, leatherworking, or fishing. Thus, a warrior's day in peacetime might look remarkably similar to that of a farmer, tending to fields alongside their family or working diligently in a smithy, the rhythmic clang of hammer on iron echoing across the settlement. This fluidity meant that martial skills were a necessary, but not exclusive, aspect of identity for many free men. The warrior's path was often integrated into the broader rhythm of agrarian life, demonstrating a society where self-sufficiency and versatility were highly valued. Viking society was structured hierarchically, fundamentally divided into three main classes: the jarls, the carls, and the thralls. At the pinnacle were the jarls, the nobility, who were wealthy landowners, powerful chieftains, and often rulers. They wielded significant power, owned vast tracts of land, and commanded loyalty from those who lived on their estates. The carls constituted the majority of the population. They were free peasants and skilled craftsmen who could own land, build homes, and raise families, forming the vital economic backbone of the settlements. At the lowest tier were the thralls, enslaved individuals who performed hard labour and possessed minimal rights, often captured during raids or born into servitude due to debt. A warrior could emerge from any free class, though the most elaborately armoured and weapon-rich individuals were typically jarls or well-off carls. A prime example of the blurred lines between civilian and martial life was the seax, a single-edged knife. This versatile tool was accessible to people of all social classes, from farmers to warriors, serving both as a practical implement for daily tasks and a reliable backup weapon in combat. Its widespread utility underscores that many individuals were prepared to defend their homes and communities when needed, even if their primary occupation was not warfare. This dual-purpose existence highlights a society where martial readiness was a pervasive expectation woven into the fabric of everyday life. Beyond the fields and the forge, the Viking warrior, as a freeman, was an active participant in the legal and political life of their community. Central to this civic engagement was the thing, a sophisticated assembly that served as the fundamental unit of government and law at local, provincial, and even national levels, as seen with Iceland's Althing. These gatherings were not merely courts, they were vital forums where free men could voice grievances, settle disputes, establish new laws, and make crucial communal decisions, such as declaring war or choosing leaders. Laws in Viking society were primarily oral, passed down through generations and memorized by esteemed law speakers who would recite them at the thing assemblies. For a warrior, participation in the thing was not just a right but an obligation. They, like other free men, had the right to attend, speak, and vote on matters relevant to their community. In legal proceedings, which were typically private suits, warriors might be involved in prosecuting cases, often on behalf of an injured family member or their chieftain goee. Judges who had to be free, have a settled home, and be older than 12 would deliberate, guided by the law speaker's recitation. The Viking legal system, while capable of imposing harsh penalties like outlawry, also prioritized negotiation and compromise, particularly through the system of wergild. This financial compensation system was used to settle grievances involving injury or death, with the amount varying based on the victim's status and the severity of the offence. This approach aimed to prevent endless blood feuds, though it is important to note that feuds and violence were permissible and even required in order to maintain one's honour in some instances. This delicate balance between collective order and individual honour reveals a pragmatic approach to justice. The thing, therefore, represented a unique blend of top-down authority and bottom-up participation, where the voice of the free farmer and warrior held legal weight, contributing to a more complex social contract than simple servitude. It was a system designed to maintain internal order and resolve disputes through collective agreement and financial recompense, reflecting their pragmatic values and the importance of reputation. Even when not on campaign, the Viking warrior maintained a constant state of readiness. Physical conditioning was an intrinsic part of their daily lives, woven into their routines through active labour and informal training. This might include sparring sessions with blunted weapons, the rhythmic thud of wooden shields clashing, or the focused practice of archery, using bows typically crafted from yew, ash, or elm, with arrows tipped with iron or bone. These drills honed their hand-to-hand combat skills, essential for a society where conflict could arise swiftly and brutally. A crucial aspect of their collective discipline was the practice of forming the shield wall skaldborg. This tightly packed formation, where warriors' shields created a formidable protective barrier, was a cornerstone of Viking combat tactics, effective for both offence and defence. The synchronized movements, the steady rhythm of their steps, and the collective bracing against an imagined foe would have been a common sight in a warrior community. This formation was more than just a military tactic, it was a powerful symbol of Viking unity and collective strength. Its effectiveness in battle depended entirely on the cohesion of individual warriors, reflecting the deep communal bonds and interdependence that characterized Viking society, from the shared longhouse to the disciplined ranks on the battlefield. The individual warrior's prowess was always in service of the collective, reinforcing the idea that survival was a communal effort. Beyond the physical, there was a constant mental preparedness. The Viking warrior lived in a world where conflict was an ever-present possibility, driven by political power, personal disputes, and the pursuit of wealth. This environment fostered a culture that valued bravery, honour, and a willingness to face adversity head-on. The sagas, while often fictionalized, reinforced these ideals, celebrating heroes and their martial exploits, contributing to the cultural emphasis on a warrior's reputation and skill. In Viking society, a warrior's gear was a profound statement, communicating far more than just readiness for battle. Weaponry and armour were powerful indicators of social status, wealth, and personal honour, forming a complex visual language within the community. The most prestigious item was often the sword, a weapon crafted from pattern-welded steel, representing the pinnacle of Viking metallurgy and craftsmanship. Its high production cost limited ownership to the wealthy or high-ranking individuals, making it a prized possession and a symbol of honour and respect, often passed down through generations. Ornate decorations on a sword could convey a warrior's victories, lineage, and prestige, transforming it into an extension of their very persona. Similarly, comprehensive body armour was a rarity, reserved almost exclusively for the elite. The byrnie, or chainmail hauberk, a shirt made from thousands of interlinked iron rings, offered excellent protection, but was incredibly labour-intensive and expensive to produce, making it a luxury for only the wealthiest and highest-ranking Vikings. Helmets, typically made of iron with a bowl to protect the skull and a nose guard, were also costly and required skilled craftsmanship, further indicating a higher status warrior. In stark contrast, the majority of warriors likely went into battle with far less protection. Their primary defensive tool was the round Viking shield, a simple, cost-effective and versatile piece of armour. Made from softwood planks like pine or fir for lightness, and typically 80 to 95 centimetres in diameter, these shields were often covered in leather for durability and featured a central iron boss to protect the hand. Beyond the shield, most common fighters relied on layered clothing for added protection, a practical approach to defence given the limited accessibility of full armour. This clear distinction in gear underscored the hierarchical nature of Viking society, where wealth and status were visibly displayed, even on the battlefield. The perception of Vikings as exceptionally tall and strongly built by outsiders, such as Byzantine diplomats and Arab travellers, was likely influenced by the intimidating presence of these well-fed, high-status warriors. While the average height of Vikings was comparable to their contemporaries in other parts of Europe, individuals with greater height and athletic gifts often gravitated towards warrior professions, and their better nutrition, especially among the elite, contributed to a more robust physique. This means that the fearsome image of the Viking warrior was not just a result of their actions, but also a carefully cultivated or naturally amplified physical presence, designed to inspire awe and fear in their adversaries. As the day waned and the Nordic dusk began to settle, the warrior, whether returning from a day of training, farming, or civic duties, would converge with the rest of the household in the communal longhouse. For a jarl or chieftain, this might be a grander feast hall, a mead hall, which served as a vibrant centre of social and political life. The transition from the outdoor chill to the warmth of the central hearth would be a welcome comfort, the air thick with the aromas of cooking food and the familiar scent of wood smoke. The evening meal was a time for communal gathering, a moment to share food, news, and the day's experiences. The fare would be hearty, often a stew of boiled meat and vegetables, similar to the farmer's meal, though perhaps with a greater variety of meats if hunting had been successful or trade had brought in new provisions. Ale, a low-alcohol beer, was a common daily drink, while mead and imported wines were typically reserved for the elite and special occasions, such as feasts and religious ceremonies. The clinking of drinking horns and the sounds of shared laughter would fill the hall, creating a lively atmosphere. As the firelight flickered and danced, casting long shadows across the decorated walls, adorned with tapestries depicting scenes from Norse mythology, the evening would often turn to storytelling and poetry. This oral tradition was deeply ingrained in Viking culture, serving as a vital means of transmitting history, cultural values, and religious beliefs across generations. Warrior poets, or skalds, would recite sagas, celebrating the exploits of heroes, recounting ancestral heritage, and reinforcing the collective identity of the community. Even though many of the sagas were later written down by Christians and are considered historical fiction, they provide a window into the values and narratives that shaped the Viking worldview. This integration of religious beliefs with social interactions and everyday life meant that deities and eight rituals were not abstract concepts, but living, breathing elements of their existence, adapting to local needs and conditions. The communal warmth, the shared sustenance, and the captivating tales woven by firelight created a powerful sense of belonging and reinforced the bonds essential for survival in a challenging world. For the Viking raider, the pre-dawn hours held a different kind of anticipation, a sharp contrast to the quiet rhythms of the farmer's awakening. This was a day driven by purpose and the allure of distant shores, a departure from the familiar land-based routines. The air, still cold and damp, would carry the bracing scent of salt and timber as the crew gathered by their longship, the vessel that epitomized the Viking Age itself. The longship was a masterpiece of shipbuilding, a testament to Norse ingenuity and craftsmanship. Characterized by its graceful lines, long, narrow hull, and remarkably light construction, it was designed primarily for speed and versatility, not for naval battles, which were rare. Its most crucial feature was its shallow draft, typically around 1 meter, which allowed it to navigate shallow waters, bypass coastal fortifications, and make arbitrary landings directly onto sandy beaches or far-up rivers. The ships were predominantly built from strong oak or pine, with planks that were riven, split, and then hewn, preserving the wood grain unbroken, resulting in exceptionally light, strong, and flexible strakes. The Gokstad ship, a well-known example, measured approximately 28 meters long and 5 meters wide, embodying the typical design of these swift vessels. Before setting sail, the crew would meticulously load provisions. Dried fish, a staple preserved through the dry, cold Nordic winds, would be packed alongside cured meats and flatbread made from their cultivated grains. Barrels of ale, which fermented and stayed fresh longer than water, would also be brought aboard, providing a reliable drink for the journey. The gathering of the crew, typically 50 to 60 seamen and warriors, would be a quiet, efficient affair, each man knowing his role. This preparation underscored that the longship was not just a means of transport, it was a revolutionary piece of technology that fundamentally reshaped Viking economic and military strategy. Its unique design enabled hit-and-run raids, deep inland penetration, and, ultimately, the establishment of new trade routes and settlements far from their Scandinavian homelands, transforming resource scarcity into opportunities for wealth acquisition and social advancement. Once the longship pushed off from the shore, a new world of sensory experiences enveloped the raider. The rhythm of the sea became the dominant force. The constant creak of timber as the flexible hull flexed with the waves, the rhythmic slap of water against the clinker-built planks, and the steady splash of oars as the crew pulled in unison. When the wind was favourable, the large rectangular wool sail would be hoisted, billowing with the force of the breeze, adding the sound of snapping canvas and the hum of the wind through the rigging. The average speed of these ships ranged from 5 to 10 knots, but under optimal conditions, they could achieve speeds of around 15 knots, making them remarkably fast for their time. Life on board was one of close quarters and communal endurance. As troop transports rather than warships, longships were designed to carry as many warriors as possible swiftly to a conflict zone. There was little privacy, and every man depended on his shipmates. Navigation relied heavily on an intimate understanding of the natural world, the position of the sun and stars, the patterns of currents, and the flight of seabirds. The Gulf Stream helped maintain a relatively mild climate in the Nordic region, but the sea remained a formidable and unpredictable force, demanding constant vigilance and skill. The journey itself was a test of resilience, a period of shared hardship and camaraderie that forged strong bonds among the crew. The desire to truly understand the Viking experience, particularly the sensory dimensions of their lives, has led to modern explorations like historical reenactments. These efforts aim to bridge the gap between historical knowledge and lived experience, allowing participants to feel what it was like to wear the wool clothing, to inhale the scents of smoke and food, and to listen to the myriad sounds of the past, including the unique soundscapes created by the ship itself. This experiential approach provides valuable insights into the bodily and sensory realities of Viking seafaring, revealing the textures, sounds, and smells that were an intrinsic part of the raiders' journey across the vast, open waters. The longship's unparalleled design provided the raiders with a crucial element of surprise. Its shallow draft allowed them to bypass fortified harbours and land practically anywhere on a coast, directly onto sandy beaches, or to navigate far up major rivers like the Elbe, Weser, Rhine, Seine, Loire, and Thames. This ability to penetrate deep inland allowed for devastating and unexpected attacks on vulnerable coastal towns and, notoriously, wealthy monasteries. Initially, Viking raids were characterized by swift, brutal hit-and-run tactics. The goal was to pillage quickly and escape before any significant resistance could be mounted. The speed and mobility of their longships were paramount in this strategy. For instance, early 9th century accounts describe Charlemagne's troops arriving at sacked Frisian towns only to find the Vikings long gone. This tactical advantage allowed even small bands to go undetected, swiftly acquire booty, and leave before reinforcements could arrive. When confronted by organised forces, Viking combat tactics were direct and formidable. They often employed a wedge formation, placing their most skilled warriors at the front to break through enemy lines and engage in their specialty, skillful hand-to-hand combat. They would also utilise shield walls, a tightly packed formation where warriors' shields created a protective barrier, effective for both attack and defence. The ruthlessness and fearlessness that characterised their approach, including the targeting of holy sites, which other Christian armies avoided, gave them a significant psychological advantage. Their willingness to make tactical retreats when necessary, rather than fighting to the last man, further demonstrated a pragmatic approach to warfare. The impact of these raids on targeted populations was profound, instilling widespread fear and insecurity and disrupting established economic activities. These expeditions, while brutal in their execution, were not random acts of violence. They were calculated ventures, driven by a complex interplay of motivations. Economic gain was a primary driver, as raiders sought to plunder valuable resources such as gold, silver, and other precious commodities from wealthy towns and monasteries. Resource scarcity in their Scandinavian homelands, stemming from harsh climates and limited agricultural land, also prompted some Vikings to seek resources elsewhere. Furthermore, social and political factors played a significant role. as successful raids offered a direct means for warriors to gain prestige and for chieftains to expand their power and influence within the highly stratified Viking society. Thus, the raider was a crucial, albeit brutal, agent of economic and social change within Viking society, whose dangerous expeditions directly contributed to the community's wealth and the individual's social standing. Following a successful raid, the focus shifted to securing the spoils. Valuable resources such as gold, silver, and other precious commodities, often acquired from monasteries and towns, would be gathered. Beyond precious metals, other goods like furs and wool, either plundered or obtained through trade during their expeditions, would also be collected. The acquisition of wealth through these means was a powerful motivator, directly contributing to the economic well-being of the raiders and their home communities. The return journey was as critical as the outward voyage. With the newly acquired loot carefully stowed, the longship's speed was once again paramount for a swift and safe passage back to their home settlement. The crew, now laden with their gains, would navigate the familiar waters, perhaps under the cover of night, the longship gliding silently into a fjord, its mission accomplished. The impact of Viking raids on European societies was undeniably profound and multifaceted. While they led to significant economic disruption in the targeted regions, causing widespread fear and insecurity, the long-term consequences extended far beyond mere destruction. Despite the violence, these expeditions inadvertently facilitated cultural exchange. As Vikings came into contact with various cultures across Europe, they not only imposed their will but also adopted some of the practices, technologies, and ideas they encountered. This exchange was a two-way street, influencing both the Vikings and the societies they interacted with. Crucially, Viking raiding was a dynamic phenomenon that evolved significantly over time. What began as opportunistic hit-and-run attacks gradually transformed into more strategic operations, including overwintering in conquered territories and eventually the establishment of permanent settlements and vital trade hubs. This progression demonstrates a long-term strategic vision that extended beyond immediate plunder. Raiders, driven by the quest for resources and social advancement, often became colonizers, establishing new agrarian settlements and urban centres in places like Jorvik in England and Dublin in Ireland. This transformation meant that the raiders' path was not solely one of destruction, but also one of exploration and settlement, profoundly shaping the geopolitical and cultural landscape of early medieval Europe. The wealth and opportunities brought back from these expeditions enriched the home communities, providing avenues for social mobility that might not have existed in a purely agrarian society. The raider, therefore, was not just a figure of terror, but a complex historical actor whose actions, both destructive and constructive, left an indelible mark on the medieval world. As the longship finally reached its home waters, perhaps under the cloak of a moonlit night, the raider's day would draw to a close. The silent glide into a familiar fjord, the gentle scraping of the hull against the shore, marked the end of another perilous journey. In the quiet anticipation of returning to the longhouse, the raider would reflect on the duality of their life, the thrill of adventure, the pursuit of wealth, and the inherent violence of their profession, balanced against the deep-seated desire for home, family, and community. This quiet return, far from the roar of battle, was a moment to reintegrate into the fabric of Viking society, knowing that the spoils of their distant horizons would contribute to the steadfast earth of their homeland. The daily lives of the Viking farmer, warrior, and raider, while distinct in their immediate focus, were inextricably woven together, forming a resilient tapestry of interdependence. The farmer, with their relentless labour in the fields and meticulous care of livestock, served as the foundational economic backbone of Viking society. Their self-sufficiency in producing food, tools, and materials ensured the survival of the entire community through the unforgiving Nordic winters. Without the farmer's consistent toil, the very sustenance required for any other endeavour, be it trade or warfare, would simply not exist. The ability of a warrior to train, or a raider to embark on distant voyages, was directly supported by the farmer's ability to provide a consistent food supply and other essential resources. In turn, the warrior played a crucial role in protecting this vital agrarian base. Whether through disciplined training in peacetime or active defence against external threats and internal disputes, The warrior ensured the stability necessary for agricultural production and trade to flourish. The communal nature of Viking society, often centered around the longhouse and the thing assemblies, meant that collective defense was paramount, and the warrior's readiness contributed directly to the security of the farmer's livelihood. This protective function allowed the farmer to focus on their essential tasks, knowing that their efforts were guarded. The raider, venturing beyond the familiar shores, brought back valuable plunder, gold, silver, furs, and other commodities that enriched the community and provided opportunities for social mobility that might not have existed in a purely agrarian society. These expeditions, often driven by resource scarcity in Scandinavia, served as a means to acquire wealth and prestige, which could then be reinvested into the community, perhaps by supporting larger farms, funding more elaborate longhouses, or acquiring more sophisticated tools and weapons. The raiders' daring voyages, therefore, provided an external infusion of resources and a pathway for individuals to ascend the social hierarchy, directly benefiting the entire social structure, including the farmers and the warriors who remained at home. This interdependence created a dynamic, almost circular, economy within Viking society. The farmer's surplus fed the warrior, who in turn protected the farm. The warrior, through prowess in battle or successful raiding, could gain wealth and status, potentially rising to become a jarl, thereby acquiring more land and thralls to further increase agricultural output. The raider's plunder, once brought home, could be traded for goods or used to support the community, creating new economic opportunities and contributing to the overall prosperity. Even the thralls at the bottom of the social ladder were integral to this system, providing the labour that underpinned both farming and the maintenance of households, and some could even gain their freedom, becoming carls and contributing further to the free working class. The longship itself serves as a powerful symbol of this interconnectedness. Built from the timber harvested by the farmer, often by skilled craftsmen who might also be warriors, it was the vehicle that carried the raider to distant lands, bringing back the wealth that ultimately benefited the entire community. The very design of the longhouse, housing both humans and livestock, further illustrates this deep integration of life and resources. The Viking ethos was one of profound adaptability, shaped by the challenging Nordic environment and the opportunities that arose from their seafaring capabilities. The harsh climate and limited agricultural land in Scandinavia drove some to seek resources and wealth elsewhere, leading to the expansion of raiding and trade. This necessity fostered innovation, particularly in shipbuilding, which in turn opened new avenues for economic gain and social advancement. The ability to move between roles, from farmer to warrior to raider and back again, was not just a practical necessity, but a reflection of a society that valued versatility and individual initiative. The resilience of Viking society lay in its ability to leverage every available resource and adapt to changing circumstances. Their sophisticated farming techniques, their pragmatic legal system, their integrated religious practices, and their innovative material culture all contributed to their survival and expansion. This dynamic interplay between the land, the sea, and the people allowed them to thrive in a demanding world, leaving a lasting impact on early medieval Europe. As the day draws to a close, and the longhouse settles into a quiet hum of activity, the intricate tapestry of Viking life reveals itself in its full complexity. The journey through a single day, experienced through the eyes of a farmer, a warrior, and a raider, underscores that survival in the Viking Age was a multifaceted endeavour, demanding resilience, resourcefulness, and a profound understanding of their natural world. The farmer's unwavering commitment to the land provided the essential foundation, a constant struggle against the elements to secure sustenance for the entire community. Their multifaceted skills, from cultivation to craftsmanship, were not merely occupations but vital contributions to the collective survival. The warrior, often indistinguishable from the farmer in peacetime, embodied the readiness and protective spirit necessary to safeguard the community's hard-won gains, participating in a legal system that balanced honour with communal order. The raider, driven by ambition and necessity, extended the reach of Viking society, bringing back wealth and opening new horizons, ultimately transforming initial acts of plunder into pathways for settlement and cultural exchange. The longship, a marvel of engineering, stands as a testament to their ingenuity, enabling both destructive raids and expansive trade and settlement. The communal longhouse, a microcosm of their society, fostered deep interdependence, where every individual's contribution, from the eldest to the youngest, was vital. Even the seemingly mundane aspects of daily life, the layered clothing, the diverse diet, the oral traditions, speak volumes about a people deeply connected to their environment and their shared heritage. Ultimately, to consider whether one could survive a day in the life of a Viking is to confront the realities of a society that was both harsh and deeply communal, pragmatic and profoundly spiritual. It was a life dictated by seasonal rhythms, shaped by a hierarchical yet fluid social structure, and driven by a relentless pursuit of resources and prestige. The echoes of their ingenuity, adaptability, and enduring spirit resonate through history, reminding us of a remarkable people who carved their existence from the challenging landscapes and turbulent seas of the North. Thank you for spending this quiet moment with the Midnight Historian. If tonight's story helped you find calm, please consider subscribing to join us again under the stars. Leave a like or a gentle comment. It helps these peaceful tales reach others who need rest. Until next time, sleep well, dream deep, and let the echoes of the past lull you into peace.